Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I'm excited to be joined today by Sarah Stair. She's a wedding planner out at Brick Willow events. Scheduling stuff on my end, and you were kind of under the weather. I hope you're feeling better now. Thank you so much for really just taking the time to come on. I really appreciate it, and especially this week, it's been crazy with the coronavirus and everything. So thank you so much for making an effort to come on. I always say that, and I really appreciate people taking the time. So why don't you please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to listen and get to know some other local industry vendors through your podcast that I haven't had the chance to meet yet. So it's exciting to be one of them now. My name is Sarah. I am based out of Enumclaw, Washington. We're about 45 minutes south of Seattle. I have been in event planning and design for a few years now. I started as a florist. So I actually had a brick and mortar flower shop in downtown Enumclaw, kind of self-taught myself how to arrange flowers, things like that, how to run a business. And through that process, started to have some people that liked my style with floral arrangements and asked me to do their weddings, and ventured into that a bit with wedding florals. But as that went on and I was at these weddings installing and setting things up, I started to see what the coordinators were doing when I was there and realized that looks way more like what I want to be doing. I don't really want to be installing this arbor. I want to be, checking in on vendors and managing the checklist and the spreadsheets. And so it kind of clicked with me, must have been a year or two into doing wedding flowers, that I really had a heart for more of the details and the behind the scenes of the wedding than I did for the floral only. So at that point, that would have been 2017 or 2018. I decided to go ahead and consider switching over to planning. So last year was my first full wedding season. So I started at the end of 2018, making that transition out of flowers, went into full planning, design, coordination. So this will be my second full wedding season, and it's the best choice I've made. It matches my personality so much better, my skill set, and I've just had the best clients, and it's so much fun to really be doing what I feel like I'm called to be doing now.
Well, and that's fascinating. And certainly you have a kind of a different view where you've worked on different aspects of the wedding, and I think the more well-rounded we can be as wedding vendors and kind of knowing what, other team members might be working on or doing certainly helps as well for you with coordination and everything.
Definitely.
So how did you get involved? You said you were doing the florals. How did you get involved in weddings before that? I mean, because, you've been in weddings even longer than just doing the planning, right?
Yeah. So when I had the brick and mortar shop, my original goal was for it to just be an actual flower shop and gift shop, just a bit more of a traditional storefront. I just happened to have a bit more of a unique style because I was self-taught in my floral. I never went through any training. And so I kind of had a little bit more of an organic style, a bit more natural. And in my area specifically, and Enumclaw, flower shop options were very limited to baby's breath and roses, which is great for the right person, the right audience. But it started to reach a point where there was a very wide audience of people in Enumclaw that started to realize that I was offering something so different and how much they enjoyed that. And it just automatically, organically turned into people coming and asking for wedding flowers. When I first started doing them, I had absolutely no experience in wedding flowers. So I had a lot of help from Amy at Washington Floral. She was my wholesale rep, and she saved my life time and time again at the beginning and really helped me place orders and budget correctly and make sure that I was providing a great experience for those first few brides whose weddings I took on for floral. So that's kind of how I just fell into it, really, is people just asking if I would do it because they saw my day-to-day bouquets and wanted that same style for their wedding. And so with help of other vendors and the wholesale market, like I mentioned, I was kind of just able to self-teach and propel into that and kind of make a name for myself in that way. And that then transferred really, really well, transitioning into wedding planning because I had such a great base of clientele and followers on social media that had enjoyed my style and knew that they liked what I created. that's really been beneficial for me now as I do planning and design.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because Enumclaw is definitely a little deep, just compared, like you
Yeah.
said, with styles and what things you're looking for. But obviously, and even just looking through your website and just corresponding with you, I mean, I can definitely see that desire to kind of elevate, whatever experience it is, whether it's the florals,
Right.
or the wedding planning. How did you become an entrepreneur and kind of all that anyway? Because I mean, certainly running a flower shop in Enumclaw isn't. How did you kind of wind up there?
Yeah, that was absolutely never the plan. That was not expected at all. I have always been the kind of person that I would be totally fine with a 9 to 5 desk job. I love administrative things. I love being organized. I love having a set schedule. My husband is the opposite of me. And so we got married in 2016, and right after that, he had decided with some friends he was going to start a coffee roasting company. One of his friends wanted to get out of a job he didn't like, had always wanted to do coffee, and my husband's the kind of person that if you have a dream and you're not doing it, he's going to just kind of kick your butt into gear and he's going to help you get there. So he launched that. It was amazing. And across the street from where they were roasting coffee, there was this old vintage gas station in Buckley. And I always thought it was so cute. And for some reason growing up, I always thought it would be an adorable flower shop. Never said that to anyone. Just one of those things I just thought about growing up. And I mentioned that to my husband one day when we were at the roastery. I said, that place across the street would be so cute as a flower shop. And the next day, a for rent sign popped up in its yard. And I had never seen it available for rent, for sale, anything. So the timing was really interesting. So we called and had a meeting set up the next day, went out and toured it, absolutely loved the space. My husband was like, let's do this. We had just finished reading the Chip and Joanna Gaines Magnolia story, and we're very similar to both of them individually. I'm reserved like Joanna. I don't jump into things. My husband's the let's just do it. It'll be fine. Let's figure it out kind of guy like Chip. And so he was like, hey, this timing was obviously for a reason. It's for rent. We don't have any business plan, any savings. You've never arranged flowers before, but let's just go for it. Like, the door's open, let's do it. And so we called the guy that owned it and said, hey, like, we really want to do this. And he said, well, we changed our mind. We only want to sell. We don't want to rent. And we kind of sat there and we're like, well, that seems like a pretty big closed door, because they were asking a lot more than we thought it was worth. It needed a lot of work. It was really small. Downtown Buckley specifically is very, unfortunately right now, it's not a very profitable place to be for a business. And so we were a little bit devastated because we had gotten our hopes up, got so excited. I mean, even I had gotten excited about it, as crazy as it was for me. And so we just kind of, I don't know, we were just really bummed for a few weeks about it. And suddenly, one day I got a Facebook message from someone else that I know in Enumclaw that owned my favorite storefront in downtown Enumclaw. And she said, hey, I just wanted to let you know we're going out of business soon, and I heard that you might be interested in a space. So we went that next day and toured the cutest little spot in downtown Enumclaw. It's absolutely adorable. It's so much fun. Perfect location right on our main strip where my husband and I both grew up here. So just really cool to have that option. And rent ended up being way cheaper than the spot in Buckley. Location was way better. We knew the people that had been in before. So we signed a lease, and this was all within a month of me mentioning the random flower shop idea, and we had keys and a space and just had to kind of figure it out. So it was not conventional at all in its beginning, for sure.
That's a fascinating story. I love that. That's so interesting just to hear where, these little one-off things and all sorts of weird circumstances kind of lead us to the path that we end up. But certainly you seem, certainly motivated and driven to kind of get this all working out, right?
Yeah. It was a lot of stress at the beginning, for sure, but it's really cool now to look back and see how that all pieced together.
So then when it comes to, transitioning now the, wedding planning, obviously, you're all in. Talk about, was that a scary transition to kind of make that, or a scary decision to make that transition, or what was that like to kind of say, hey, I'm going to shift focus, but obviously still be involved in weddings.
Yeah, it actually ended up being a really, really good transition because we had been in the storefront, I want to say about a year at the time, where I started to really think about making that switch. And unfortunately, our building, although it was really, really cute and adorable, and I loved it, had a lot of problems. It's a very, very old historic building in Enumclaw, and our landlords were not very cooperative in doing their part of the agreement. And so we had the roof would leak all over our counter and our merchandise. The sewer would back up and flood our entire storeroom, and they wouldn't fix it for days. Just things like that just kept happening and happening. And so at the same time that I'm thinking to myself, I really want to be moving out of flowers and moving into wedding planning, but I have this storefront that has this following. How will this even work? Will anyone want me to switch my services? Right at that same time is when the building just truly started falling apart, and our landlords were just absolutely refusing, unfortunately, to do anything. And again, we had no business plan for this, no savings. So it's not like we are, we have tons of money sitting around to put into the building ourselves. So we kind of realized we need to shut the storefront down. This is not conducive to business to have to close for a week at a time due to building issues. And so we started seeking out people to take over our lease terms. And so that part just naturally, it was a really big bummer at the time because the store was doing so well. It was really successful. It was just, we loved being there. So it was sad in a lot of ways, but looking back now, it was the perfect way for me to say I'm transitioning out of what I was doing into something else without losing that momentum, because we, were able to announce to everyone, here's why we're closing. We're so sorry. We wish we could do this, but unfortunately, we just don't have the proper space we need. But this is a great time to tell you that we have some other dreams we're cooking up. These are some things we'd like to move forward and do. We'd love to have you follow along with us in this new phase of Brick and Willow. And so it ended up being an awesome transition of people really being able to rally behind us because they did feel so bad for us with the situation with the building, and just have gotten to know us on a personal level through the storefront. And so we got a lot of support from people on being so excited to see that even though one door was closing, we were going to go ahead and start down another path and not give up completely on the dream of Brick and Willow.
Yeah, it's funny because I think once you start a business or kind of do anything, there is, obviously besides the financial and, wanting to succeed, but there's always this, people become investors or whatever. Last year, I had talked with Dorothy, kind of similar, it sounds like to your husband. I'm a little bit more of a go-getter, and we had thought about doing more like a novelty kind of toy thing, just like a total side business from kind of anything that we're, my wife's a teacher, and we do, I do the video, but, so we said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and, send out some emails, just getting some ideas from friends and family. And even to this day, people will be like, hey, so whatever happened with that? Besides the fact of everything else that we're doing and everything and whatever other life stuff is happening, they're like, hey, whatever happened to that toy thing you told us about? And we're like, God, so yeah, it's really good that you were able to kind of curtail that, momentum into, running the wedding planning. I think that's great.
Yeah, it ended up really being a perfect situation. As much as it wasn't ideal at the time, in retrospect, we are very thankful for how that all panned out.
So then in terms of, making the transition in, what kinds of, do you want to describe yourself, and kind of how you look at things? How do you like to, how do you sell yourself to potential brides and grooms? What are your most proud of the services that you offer and kind of how you operate?
Yeah. So for me personally, since I am self-taught in every aspect of being a business owner, in wedding planning, in wedding floristry, a lot of it for me has just been the desire to always be learning and growing. And so that's a big thing to me that I feel like is really beneficial to my clients, is that if I don't know how to do something, I'm more than willing to learn it for them to best serve them. So that's been one thing that I think has really benefited me as a company. The other thing that I tend to do differently than others in the area. And I am not at all saying this is the right method or the only method, but for me, I really haven't went the traditional route with marketing at all with my business. I have not paid for marketing. I do not really go to any wedding shows. Just things of that nature have never been something that I had time to do because I was so busy learning how to maintain this business that I just really didn't have the time or money to invest into any of those ways. But I've kind of learned that for me, it's worked really well to avoid those marketing techniques and focus fully on my main marketing technique being word of mouth referral. And so for me, my biggest goal always with every client is to provide them way more than they imagined or expected within their service package. And so making sure that I really am just going above and beyond whenever possible and showing my clients how much I do care, that they're not just another number, another wedding date on the calendar. They're real people with real stories that I genuinely love knowing and getting to be a part of that day. And for me, that's really been the most beneficial thing that I think has set me apart, is just that I would say 90% of my clients are word of mouth referral. They came to me from a past bride that just loved their experience and went and told their friends or their family. You know, I have a lot of siblings where I'm doing the brother and the sister's wedding in the same year or in different years. And again, like I said, I think that there's so much value in every form of marketing for different businesses, but I've just found that's kind of been my secret weapon, I guess, of sorts, is that I just spend all of my time pouring into those clients and I don't take the time and energy to put into other forms because I've just seen such a good return on my investment in that way.
No, I mean, I think referrals, like you said, I mean, you just get the most bang for your buck. I mean, people look at, you look at reviews and you look at all these websites, you look at everything, and, just having that trusted, referral from a friend or a family member. I mean, even like for us with like corporate stuff, if someone, there's so much noise nowadays and there's so many options, and, ultimately we just want the, customer to be satisfied. But I think them knowing, my college friend got married and, they loved it. It's so nice. And I think it really sets us up as vendors. Like, you're already kind of getting that good seal of approval from the get-go. So then you're really able to kind of you just can start the ball running, right? You don't have to necessarily build that same part of that trust is already built. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
What is your kind of not like ideal client, but like who do you find that people that are attracted to how you work and who you like to work with? Because I mean, I always say it's kind of that two-way street when it comes to clients and vendors.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when I first started out, I definitely did not realize the value of knowing who your ideal client is and knowing who you serve best. So when I first started, if there was an inquiry, I would take it. It wouldn't matter to me where the wedding was, what the client was like, their personality, their style. Wedding came in, I said yes, it was a go. I learned pretty quickly that didn't work very well for me. To me, it wasn't fair, the amount of time and energy that I was having to give to some clients that I wasn't giving to others because they didn't need that extra assistance. And I started to learn pretty quickly that those clients that weren't ideal, that were asking so much more of me for the same, pricing and the same package, it just wasn't really balancing out fairly for all of my clients. And so I started to realize I really need to hone in on what my ideal client looks like, what kind of person they are, what they value, and really figure that out. But that definitely was a process to get there. I don't think that's an easy overnight thing. It's never fun to turn down a potential client. For me, I've really switched my mindset on it, though, to making sure that I'm the best fit for them, too. So I'm not just seeking out, oh, this client just doesn't seem like they are a great fit for me. I really focus on, am I a great fit for them? Or do I know another planner in the area that they would just click with so much better? So for me, we have so many amazing wedding planners and designers locally. And that's another thing that's really cool with the ideal client side of things, is that I am able to share that business with others. And if I get a client that wants to go up and adventure in Mount Rainier and have a really woodsy elopement, that's just not my personal style. But I know, a huge amount of great girls that live for hiking up in the mountains and creating that beautiful Pacific Northwest look. And I can send this client to them, and that client is so happy. That vendor just got an awesome referral, and I have that date free for a client who comes in that has more of my style, which is a more light and airy look, more romantic, more classic. Someone that, really values the experience they're providing their clients. That's probably the biggest thing that I look for in my clients, is someone that really is focusing on what they want their guests to feel through their wedding. Someone who is maybe willing to pay a little more in some areas of their day to see the benefits of how that makes their guests feel so much more welcomed and so much more honored to be a part of that day, if that makes sense. So it's definitely been an adventure to get there, but I feel like I'm slowly honing in on that a lot more as I grow.
No, it's tough. And it's, I think everyone's still, years go by and you're still growing. And I mean, that's even with me, like the saying, well, I can't do that, or that's not my, expertise or specialty. Like, I think I always used to feel like self-conscious about that, right? Like you said, if someone wants something that's outside, and people ask us all the time to do stuff, weddings or corporate or otherwise. And sometimes I'm just like, that is not like, we aren't that. And I used to always feel like self-conscious about it. And I was like, well, no, you do just need to know like where you excel and where other people excel. And like you said, just, and at the end of the day, then, that other vendor, you've built that relationship better for you. And then also, that client's happy, and then you can find someone that'll be happy with you.
Exactly. Yeah. It just seems to work so well for everyone involved to not say yes to everything.
I want to hear, what was your guys' wedding like? You said you got married in 16?
Yeah. Our wedding, this was before I knew what I was doing with wedding planning. So I would completely change absolutely everything we did now, knowing what I know. I'm able to give my clients a lot of advice nowadays on what not to do from that experience. And that's actually the biggest driving force behind why I love what I do so much, is giving other brides and grooms the experience that we didn't have on our big day. We honestly were so stressed out. We did not enjoy our day at all. We did not consider the benefits of using our budget to have, at minimum, a coordinator. And it's just one of our biggest regrets, but it's so rewarding for me now to have all these clients and see them genuinely be present every single minute of the day, because I am handling those stresses for them. So that has just been, it's so cool to me. I just love seeing that. But our wedding was 550 people, which is the first red flag. I absolutely never recommend that, no matter how much you love your friends and family. And we were very much on a tight budget. I think we ended up staying under 10 grand for 550 people. So, we were DIYing every single thing. Our guests had the best day. They loved it. They thought it was so much fun, so unique. We had like an outdoor reception on the acreage out at our church, and there was pathways to all these different things you could do. And there was so much fun to be had by them, but we did not really get to experience that. So overall, not my favorite day, but I'm very thankful that I love my husband and he's amazing. I'd much rather have a great marriage than the wedding of my dreams, but one day we'll probably have to do a vow renewal or something to make up for it.
No, it's hard. It's even when we got married, and I had been in the industry, and I've said before on here, the sell for Dorothy, for my wife, for us to hire a coordinator was a really hard one. It's really hard to you just don't know what you don't know until it's kind of done, and It's really, and that's same goes for video, same goes for a lot of different vendor categories. But it's like you just don't know. How do you now, having gone through that, like you said, you use your experiences, but how do you help sell that and kind of educate potential clients of yours about why it's so important for you or a coordinator to kind of help them on the wedding day?
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I feel like as a planner has been a bit of a struggle to learn on how to sell that well, because we don't have a physical product that we are giving to our clients. You know, we aren't telling them, here's how much it costs for you to receive all your stationery suite. Here's how much it costs for you to receive 1,000 beautiful photos. Here's how much it costs for a 10-minute, film of your day. We don't have that concrete, this is what you will be receiving in exchange. So to me, yeah, that definitely has been tricky to find out really how to explain my value to these clients without seeming like I'm just trying to make money off of them, because that truly for me is never the motivation. If I could afford to do it, I would absolutely love to just be a coordinator for free for everyone who needs it. Like that would be the dream. Obviously, it doesn't work like that with a business with taxes and employees and expenses. But for me, I do think the experience that I had on my wedding day has really helped me to be able to be upfront and honest with these clients, because I can really tell them from a non-biased standpoint, I did not have someone like me at my wedding day, and I truly did not enjoy it. And that is something that, is really sad that I didn't enjoy that day. And so I think clients hear that and they know that that's a serious thing for me to be saying, I feel like if I would have said, oh yeah, I had a coordinator and it was a great decision, that's not as impactful as I didn't and absolutely regret it, So for me, that's a huge part of it. And then also, again, with the word of mouth referrals has been the other huge selling point. Is I have clients that say to someone, Sarah was amazing. I absolutely loved working with her. You really need to hire her. And they go, oh, I don't know. I think we can do it ourselves. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We truly couldn't have done it without her. And they tell them these specific examples of times where I was able to kind of come in and fix some things along the way, solve problems for them. And then that potential client is like, oh, I didn't realize that your wedding could have crashed and burned if she hadn't been there, because that's the thing I tell my husband a lot is people don't realize what their wedding would have been like without the coordinator. People who are smart and make that investment and choose to have one are very fortunate that they never have to face the reality of what it would have been like without one. But we've had countless times where if we would not have been on site, I truly don't know that the wedding day would have happened, and so for me to be able to kind of relay that information to clients and relay the positive experiences that those I've worked with have had with me seems to be really helpful in that way.
No, I absolutely agree. And, I try to be, I'm pretty hands-on just when it comes to kind of, day of stuff. And so, when there is a coordinator, I talk a lot. I'm not one of those videographer, and there are some in the script, some and they're just off and they just do. I'm really chatty with the photographer, really chatty with the coordinator. And yeah, I mean, I just see all day, like just the thousands of little, even though all the big decisions have been made, ahead of time, all those hundreds of little decisions made day of, by the coordinator or trying to tell us to be somewhere or someone else, that your guys' position is doing. And yeah, the client will just never know like all this stuff that's going on kind of around them. To really, it's like you're kind of trying to guide this like blind plane in to like a runway, but they just don't know. And like you said, it's the hardest thing. And I've always said that, I know a lot of planners and I say it is without a doubt the hardest service you guys have in the world to sell, because weddings happen all the time. And, just because two people walk down the aisle being married doesn't not necessarily mean that was as successful of a wedding as it could have been. Or like you said, you love your husband and you guys had a great day, but like it could have been a lot better, right?
Yeah, totally.
So you guys are based in Enumclaw. Do you, I assume you kind of do weddings, all over the place. Do you find a big difference between doing them, in the Enumclaw versus maybe like the greater Seattle area or wherever else you travel?
Yeah, we definitely travel quite a bit. We honestly aren't in Enumclaw very often. Our clientele has a tendency to be in like the Tacoma area, For some reason, we really got into like the Olympia Chehalis area a lot last year. And then Yakima, of all places, is another one that we did one event there and happened to get put on the preferred vendor list. So we do get a lot of inquiries east side. We have a east side coordinator now, which is nice. So anyone on that side of the mountains that comes to us, we kind of have her take the lead there. But yeah, I mean, we don't really have somewhere that I feel like we really are always at. You know, we seem to just be bouncing around. Tacoma, Seattle, really not as often as I would expect. You know, Bonnie Lake, Sumner, Enumclaw sometimes, and then out of state right now, we have a few that we're kind of traveling for as well. So it's really across the board for me.
Do you find, and this is something I ask kind of vendors of any type, you know, do you find there are things that you're, you know, constantly educating on or giving advice on, or things that you wish your, you know, clients or potential clients asked you, you know, about wedding planning or coordination specifically, things that you find that you just wish more people knew, or that you're answering a lot that you wish, you know, you could just kind of get out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that there's a tendency, unfortunately, and I understand it from a budget perspective, but there can be a tendency when couples get engaged to send out 20 inquiries to, you know, a vendor in one category and go with the lowest price just because it was the lowest price, without really stopping to think, well, what did that other quote include that was higher but was much more beneficial to your needs and your day and has much better reviews and recognition in the area? So I think that's been one thing that I really have a lot of people, you know, that ask for suggestions for vendors and then unfortunately don't go with the vendors that I would prefer to work with due to those budget options that pop up. So that, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things right now, that I'm just trying to work with my ideal clients on really expressing the value to them of a professional vendor that truly believes in their craft and is putting in the hard work to be as excellent as they can be. Because unfortunately, you know, as much as I wish that every vendor in our area was doing that, we just know that's not the case. We know there are people that sadly are just looking to capitalize on making a quick amount of money and aren't going to provide that amazing service that's going to make them a great part of the vendor team. So I think that would be the biggest thing that lately has been an issue, is just really learning how to make sure that my clients don't break their bank. Of course, I would never, ever want someone to spend more than they're comfortable with, but helping them to really prioritize at least a few things that are really important to them in the day and close to their heart, and splurge a bit more in those areas on their vendor choices, and leave those more budget style vendors to things that aren't as essential.
No, it's interesting, and if you'll just amuse me for a quick story,
Yeah.
We in my office, it gets really hot, and so I've been researching getting this window shade for the last couple weeks. And you know, as someone, you know, we've been married, everything, I don't price shop a lot of stuff anymore. You know, generally you buy a camera or whatever, that's kind of the cost.
Yeah.
And I've been really price shopping, trying to figure out how to get a shade or some sort of, you know, whatever to block the heat and stuff from coming in where all my office stuff is. And, you know, I did the same thing that you would do for a wedding. And I went on and I looked at, you know, window shade, whatever, and I got, you know, 3 or 4 different quotes. And yeah, I really tried to sit down, like you said, and figure out, you know, because the first guy came and it was like, this can be like $2,500. And I was like, wow, okay, sticker shock, like that's a lot for
right.
You know, a window shade. And then I really sat there and figured out, okay, well, this is like the top of the line, the Cadillac of, you know, this thing is going to be bells to the whistle, you know, the best thing ever, you know. And then you got some quotes that were like way, way, way less, and you figure, okay, well, where are they cutting the cost and whatever. And then I ended up, you know, settling in the middle. But it was kind of an interesting thing because I just haven't gone through an experience like, you know, these couples that, you know, email you or I about, you know, prices and packages and really trying to compare. And it is hard, but you definitely don't want to, like, you know, if you get a quote that's higher, like, and of course, like I didn't, you want to be polite to everybody, but like I really sat there and figured out, like, well, you know, why is this one so much more? And then you can see why, and then you can decide, like, okay, well, if I'm somebody that I really cared about this for the next, 40 years and whatever, okay, then I'm going to spend that. But for me, that's not worth that, but that's also not wrong, right? I mean,
Yeah.
video, like, or, photo or whatever, it's all contingent on people's things, but just doing that, like you said, the proper research, not just going with the lowest one just because it's the lowest, really trying to like figure out what's important to you. And we're back. Sarah's connection had frozen for a minute. I thought you were just so excited by my window shade
I was
story,
just
or his song.
speechless.
But anyway, but just my point is I had not gone through that experience in a long time, and it was very
Yeah.
insightful to me as someone that was a lot of money to spend on something that I wasn't even sure if I really needed in the first place. And just for people to, I am sympathetic that there are a lot of options, but just to, weigh back and forth why one might be significantly cheaper or one might be significantly more expensive, and whether that's important or not to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think, like I said, I would again never suggest that someone break the bank, take out a loan, things like that, just to say that they're getting the most expensive vendor, because that must mean they're the best option. It's not always that black and white. I think that sometimes for one client, they totally should go with the higher end vendor because that is what they are so excited about. Like, the video is the most important part of the day to them, and it's worth any amount they can invest. Whereas for another client, they might be okay with a smaller video package that maybe isn't as inclusive as another because it just isn't a priority to them. And that's never, it's never wrong of someone to not prioritize something. It really just is all up to client preference. To me, it's just so important to help them really figure out what they do care the most about and spend accordingly. And then let those other categories that don't matter as much to them be where they save a bit if needed to cut back on the budget. But don't ever cut back on what you are most passionate about and most excited about for your big day.
No, I laughed. We had a planner email me yesterday, and she said, "Hey, are you guys available this day?" And this is I budgeted this amount for their video, and I said, "Oh, we're a lot lower than that." I said, "We can." I said they can pay more for some other stuff if they want.
Yeah.
I said, I was like, "No, we charge and try to keep it." Whatever. But I had just laughed because I said, well, they certainly could pay that much, but they don't have to if they don't want to.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that's an interesting thing to navigate as a vendor and deciding when it is worth that extra cost and it's not, because, not all of those high price points, like you said, are going to make a big difference. You might have someone that's $1,000 different and they might really be providing the exact same service. It's just a matter of doing your due diligence and making sure of what you're signing up for and making sure that tracks with the investment you're hoping to make in it.
What's your favorite part of the wedding? What do you like, going through the most? What's your favorite part?
Like the wedding day itself or the planning process?
I would say, I mean, the wedding day itself, you're there as a coordinator or planner, you have such a connection to the couples you work with. What do you like experiencing with them?
Yeah, I think for me, probably the right after the ceremony feeling is so much fun to see, where they are so excited that they did it, and especially if they were nervous that they made it through it successfully. And you can just see a shift in how they're feeling, and they're so excited for the rest of the night. A lot of people are really nervous about walking down the aisle and tripping and stumbling over their vows and things like that. And so there's just such a noticeable difference in my clients when they come back down the aisle and go to sign the marriage license. So to me, it's just fun to start to see that. The only thing that they're stressed about that I can't necessarily take away that day is some of those nerves. I can, of course, reassure them and set them up for success in the ceremony. But if you're someone that's nervous about standing in front of 200 people, I can't fix that part. So to me, it's just really fun to watch them relax and really start to just enjoy the fact that they're married and be so excited about it. So on the wedding day, yeah, that's really fun. And then honestly, to me, one of the most fun parts with my clients has been after the weddings. So just when they get back from their honeymoon and they want to come by the office just to say hi, or they want to come by and drop off a gift or mail me a Christmas card. So to me, that part is really, really fun to just see the continued relationship, that it's not like, okay, their wedding's done, I'm going to archive their file and I'll never see them again. They're Instagram messaging me, they're sending their brother to me for next summer. I know what's going on in their lives and still get to be a part of that in some way. So I think that's been really rewarding too, after the whole thing's said and done, to still be valuable to them and that they want to, continue to connect with me. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, that's the hard thing in the wedding industry is you generally have, one-time clients. So you really need to kind of, build those relationships and those bonds. Like you have to, get those referrals and to kind of just continue that down the future. Because we don't see the same people too many times.
Right. And I would hope to never have to do someone's wedding twice. So I'm glad that they're, one-time clients, but it is just really fun for me to just stay connected and see them having their first babies together and getting the invitations. I have a client right now that I'm making up a quote for planning her son's first birthday party now. And I planned her wedding a couple years ago. And it's just so fun to see all that come full circle.
That's awesome. Winding down our time here a little bit, where do you want to, you really are a go-getter, right? I mean, you went in, to the floral and planning out. Where do you want to see this grow in the next couple of years? Where are you inspired to work on? What do you want to see get bigger? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, right now, my big focus is on growing a team successfully. So we're hitting a point where we are getting so many inquiries on the same dates, and the calendar is filling up so fast that we are conducting interviews in the next couple weeks here. We had some applications that we put out last month. So that's a big thing right now for this season specifically, is just building a team well and making sure that I'm finding the right kind of people to be a part of that. I would love to eventually, in the next few seasons, be training up some of my lead coordinators to really play a much bigger role in the company, so that I can, maybe I'm just focusing on my full planning clients only, and all coordination is going through an amazing group of girls that I've trained and trust to coordinate the wedding days. And that gives me a little bit more flexibility and time to really dive into full design, full planning, things that I can't necessarily do when I have 25, 30 weddings in a summer. So that's probably one of my bigger things. Another focus for me would be, eventually I would really, really like to start working on some resources for clients that are DIY budget brides that can't afford my services necessarily, but still need that help and still need that guidance. So ideally, I would love to one day, release like a wedding planning workbook of some sort, an actual book of some sort. But those are more down the line ideas. I think for now, just growing my team so that I can serve more people well is the big focus.
Awesome. Well, you've done such a good job today. Thank you so much for, taking the time to come on and schedule this. I know, like we were talking, it's just been a crazy time of year right now, and just with a lot going on. Thank you again for making the time. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on or mention before we let you go today? And then we'll be sure to do all your plugs and everything about your websites and stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, just thank you again so much for taking the time and being so flexible with scheduling. I have loved seeing what you've created through this. It's such a fun, way to get to know those vendors, like I said, when I don't necessarily live in the Seattle area, so I'm not as available to be networking as much as I would like to. So it's just a really cool opportunity to get to know those others around us and share a little bit about myself as well. And I just appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. If people want to learn more about you and your different packages and everything you offer for planning and wedding coordination, where would you have them check out?
Yeah, so brickandwillowevents.com is our website. And then for Instagram, we're just at Brick and Willow as well. Those are the two biggest places you find us. We are on like Wedding Wire, Facebook, of course, as well. That's all linked on the website. But I would say stop by Instagram first and then head over to the site and you'll find all the information you need. We have our pricing sheet on the website. You can download the PDF right there. So we don't really hide that side of things. You don't have to email us first to see it. So that would be the first step for you.
Yes, transparent pricing is something I've harped on this website podcast for the last 2 years. Is making having that easily accessible, I think, is incredibly important for clients to be able to, educate themselves and find who they want to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you again so much. This has been just so great. I love getting to get to know new people. We have friends on here and new vendors both, and I just really appreciate you taking the time. If you're like Sarah and you are interested in coming on the podcast to share a little bit about your story, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/podcast-guest, and that's a nice, easy questionnaire that we have set up that you can fill out and kind of get the process of vetting and everything else going. So thank you again. This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.